Yo, what is going on, y'all? It is X from Let's Get Free TV, and in this video today, we are going to be taking a look at Icosa and Hedron. All right, we got the auctions coming up very soon, so if you guys don't know what either of these projects are, I just want to give you a quick rundown about them, and supply some information if you wanted to learn more. Okay, because I definitely think that if you are in the hex community or just hopping into the hex community, it is very important for you to know about Icosa and Hedron, as they are because they are a huge part of the hex ecosystem. So if that sounds good to you guys, smash that thumbs up button, as it helps me out on the YouTube algorithm. And if you enjoy me or the content, do not forget to tap that subscribe button as well, and also click that bell icon so you can get notified every time I upload a video. Keep in mind, this is not financial advice. That being said, let's just hop right into it. So, what is Hedron? And I'm just going to be going over some of the information on the front page itself. We're not going to go through the white papers of either of these projects, but I will leave the links down in the description below as always, and I highly encourage you to dig deeper if you want to know more, and just because due diligence is the best, all right? So, make a good practice. So, Hedron is a collection of smart contracts that live on the Ethereum and pulsechain blockchain. Hedron builds on top of Hex to allow stakers to mint and borrow Hedron tokens against their active Hex stakes. Hedron also allows stakers to trade their Hex stakes as NFT tokens on any compatible NFT marketplace. Hedron has no admin keys and no kill switches. Just like Hex, Hedron is completely decentralized with zero counterparty risk. So, what does that mean? Basically, Hedron is an application built on top of Hex. So what you can do is you can convert your Hex native stakes, which is your stake if you were to just stake on the Hex website itself, which is what most people did in the past and still do, honestly. But that is a native stake, right? So you can turn those native stakes into NFTs with Hedron. Why would you want to turn your NFTs into stakes? One, if you wanted to sell your Hex stake itself, because those hold value, right? And then also, two, if you wanted to send your Hex stake from one wallet to another, you could use the Hedron protocol to convert that native stake into an NFT and send it wherever you please. So definitely a cool use case, right? I mean, Hedron was and is a complete game changer, all right? It added a whole another aspect to Hex. How does Hedron's supply relate to the Hex share price? Hedron is an inflationary token because the Hex share price only increases over time. Hex stakes will continually have less shares allocated to them. The net effect of this is that the Hex share price increases. The amount of mintable Hedron will decrease. This is similar in effect to how mineable cryptocurrencies increase difficulty over time. So we will actually get into this in just a second, but how Hedron works is, unless you buy it itself, you can mint Hedron from your native Hex stakes. All right. So if you have Hex staked from way back when, or if you just made a stake 2 days ago, you have Hedron that you can mint from that stake. All right. And most Hexicans do not even know that, right? Which is why I want to upload this video, especially before the auctions. And I'm not going to get too much into the auctions because I will have a separate video coming out very soon on that as well. All right. So we're just going to take a look at this chart over here. You would say start of native stake. All right. You would natively stake. You would mint your Hedron. There was a bonus phase. We're not going to talk too much about this because chances are, if you're watching this video and don't know what Hedron is, you definitely missed the bonus phase, unfortunately. Now let's go over some more key points of Hedron. Hedron benefits the Hex ecosystem by further incentivizing staking. To mint the largest and most consistent amounts of Hedron, stakers will have to stake larger quantities of Hex for longer periods of time. So basically, they're going along with the bigger pays better bonus, basically. Let me make myself a tad bit smaller, all right? The Hedron minting factor. Hedron is minted 1-to-1 in relation to a particular Hex stakes amount of B shares, 1 billion shares. Stakers can mint this amount once per day served within a stake. This This can be done once per Hedron day, at the end of the stake or at any arbitrary points in between. Various bonuses are available which only apply to minting, such as the launch phase and AMR bonuses. There are no obligations for minting. If you have hex stake, you can mint your Hedron with no risk to your stake, which is what I was just explaining. And then we're not going to talk about the tradable stake because we talked about this. This is just basically stating that you can turn your stake into an NFT and send it to wherever you'd like or sell it on an NFT marketplace. The Hedron borrowing factor. Users with hex stake instances, HSI, which are not tokenized are able to borrow Hedron tokens, which may be highly tax advantageous. While minting requires the staker to have served days with the stake in order to mint, borrowing will mint all available Hedron regardless of served days in one lump sum. Hedron advances are between the staker and the contract directly, no third parties. All payments, including premiums, are burnt by the contract. No party directly benefits from a Hedron advance aside from the staker. Bonuses do not apply to Hedron advances. So, really cool. If you have a huge stake and maybe you want that Hedron, aka maybe you want that money for something, you can actually take it out without waiting and do what you please with it. Obviously, you have to pay it back. You are borrowing it. The liquidation factor. Hedron advances which go into default 90 or more days without repayment can be sent to auction by any other user of the Hedron protocol. When another user wins the auction by being the highest bidder, they will be able to claim the hex stake used as collateral for themselves. The original borrower can bring themselves current with their payments at any point before their advance is brought to the auction. To prevent this, Hedron is designed to prevent liquidations by allowing users to pay in advance or by allowing full payoff of the advance. So really, really cool. If you don't pay your shit back, somebody else gets your stake. If you borrow a bunch of Hedron, don't pay it back. The only way to obtain Hedron directly through the contract is to mint or borrow it against a hex stake. There is no way to directly buy or exchange any other currency for Hedron. That being said, third-party tools like Uniswap or pulsechain could be used to obtain Hedron without staking. All that means is when Hedron was minted for free once it came out, people added liquidity to it by putting it on Uniswap and any other DEX, right? So now there is liquidity and people buy it and people sell it all the time. Because that's another thing. You mint a coin for free with your hex stakes and you can technically sell that free coin for money. The Hedron bonus factor. For the first 100 days of Hedron's launch, there will be a launch phase bonus. The bonus stays as a 10x multiplier, decreasing by 1x per 10 days of the phase. There is also an advance to mint ratio, AMR, bonus to help ensure at least 50% of the Hedron supply is freely minted rather than borrowed. The bonuses only apply to minting. So this don't really matter. Like I said, if you don't know about Hedron, you missed that on the bonus phase, unfortunately. So now we're just going to briefly go over the Hedron Dapp. This is where you would go, and once you went here and you connected your MetaMask, you would see all your stakes here. This is just a burner wallet, so I don't have any. But you would go down here, you would see all your stakes here. On the right side here, there'd be a tab. It'd be like claim your Hedron, mint your Hedron. You could follow each of the steps and you could mint your Hedron or do what you wanted to do. But that is pretty much it. And also, you can make a stake through the Hedron protocol itself. So you could go over here and you could create an HSI, which is just a hex stake, but you are starting it through the Hedron protocol. So it is basically already. So you would type the amount of hex you wanted to stake, and you would serve the days the same you would with just a native hex stake, right? And then you can go over here and you can see the liquidations. Now moving on to the other part of the puzzle, Icosa. All right, so this is probably going to get a little bit confusing. I would highly recommend, like I said, reading the white papers and researching more into these projects, but also rewatching this video because that might help. But so Icosa is just Hedron staking. All right, so you know how Hedron is a project built on top of Hex, right? Icosa is just a project built on top of Hedron, basically. Icosa is a protocol which builds upon the Hedron protocol to add Hedron staking and additional incentives for staking hex, as well as jumpstarting the Hedron system. Icosa is built by the same team behind the Hedron protocol, ensuring seamless integration. All right, so basically, as we just said, what Hedron and Icosa are for are just making more incentives for staking, which is why I said these are a big part of the hex community. Let's go over some main points real quick. HSI buyback, staking your Hedron, and staking Icosa. So remember, Hedron is that free coin you can mint for your native stakes. Icosa is a protocol that lets you stake that Hedron, all right? So you can stake that free coin you get from your hex stakes. And you can also stake your Icosa, all right? Sell HSI hex stakes contract and get paid in Icosa. The HSI will be borrowed against by the contract and sent to auction. Yet this means you have the option to rebuy your stakes in said auction. So those are the auctions I was talking about, but this is really cool. So remember, an HSI is just a hex stake wrapped into the Hedron protocol, all right? With Icosa, the buyback, you can take your HSI and you can sell it to Icosa and get paid in Icosa token. All right, and then stake your Hedron. You can stake Hedron for Icosa. The daily yield is determined by the amount of daily Hedron burnt within the Hedron contract. Stake your Icosa. Stake Icosa for both Hedron and Icosa. Like Hedron staking, Icosa yield comes from daily burnt Hedron. Hedron yield comes from borrowed HSI hex stakes and EES penalties collected by the contract over time. So really cool. You can stake your Hedron itself to get Icosa. You can stake your Icosa itself to earn Icosa and Hedron. We're all the SA. This really doesn't apply to you if you don't know what Icosa is, but this came out, it was only available for I think the first 30 days when Icosa came out. This was basically just a big pool to generate yield in Icosa, all right? What is the point? Incentives for both Hedron and Hex holders. Icosa exists to both allow Hedron holders to generate yield and to absorb free market Hex in the form of HSI Hex, and distribute those to the community in a way that equally benefits both Hedron and Hex. Hedron stakers can enjoy yield in the form of Icosa, as well as the burning effect of the HSI buyback mechanism. Hex stakers can enjoy decreased sell pressure with the ability to bid on their HSI hex stakes for freely minted Hedron. So this is some of the problems that they are solving. Decrease hex sell pressure, decrease Hedron sell pressure, scarce token supply, increase hex staking incentive, increase Hedron burning incentive, and reduce liquidity scavenging. So definitely really cool. And the sell pressure is decreased because you can bid on more hex with the free tokens you got from your hex stakes, right? So you get your Hedron, you can mint it for free, okay? And then you can, because you can mint your Hedron for actually free, and then you can use that Hedron that you minted for free to bid on more HSI hex stakes. Super, super cool. So let's go back over here and take a look at the Icosa Hedron front end, all right? Hex staking, and this is native, all right? So this is the same thing as if you were to go to hex.com and stake on there. This is the same exact thing. You could go over here, you could click on create hex stake. You can type in whatever you wanted for the days, and then you can either choose you want a native hex stake or an HSI encapsulated stake, which is again making your hex stake inside of the Hedron protocol. And when you make a stake encapsulated through the Hedron protocol, you have more incentives. And this is the same thing as about the Hedron Dapp that I showed you, right? So it shows your hex staking, which is your HSI encapsulated. All right, so you do the same thing. You would push on create stake, stake type, you could still choose. And if you have any hex stakes that are encapsulated, you can click on mint all and you can mint actually all of the Hedron available from those stakes. And like I said, burner wallet, but if you had stakes active, they would show up here and there'd be buttons here and you could choose what you want to do for individual stakes. And then down here, this shows your tokenized HSIs, all right? And when your HSIs are tokenized, that means they are NFTs and that they can be shared or do whatever, right? This is basically just what makes that hex stake as an NFT. Now for the last one, we have the Icosa app, all right? The most important one of this whole thing, I think. So right here, we have staking side, which is where if you had Icosa, you would come over here and you could make a stake, right? You would stake your Icosa here. We have the Hedron staking side, which is where you could stake your and then we are all the SA. Unfortunately, minted has ended for this if you missed it. And then down at the bottom, we have the HSI buyback that we were talking about, meaning if you have one of those tokenized NFT stakes, that is a tokenized HSI hex stake, you can bring it here. Remember, you can sell that to the Icosa contract itself, and it will actually give you Icosa as payment. All right. So that is it for the video, guys. I just wanted to give you guys a somewhat fast and hopefully a simple rundown to Icosa and to Hedron itself. This is just for the new people, and this is really for the people that don't have any idea about what it is. I just went over the surface of it. There is definitely a lot more to learn about it. You can definitely dive way deeper into the projects, and I recommend you doing that. Like I said, all links will be down in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, like I said, tap that thumbs up button, tap that sub button, and I'll catch you on the next one, all right?